everybody, and welcome to another edition of Transformers Reviews. Now today we're going to be taking a look at two guys that are basically the same mold with just a few minor differences apart from the paint. The one thing that a lot of people, if you've seen reviews of either one of these guys, especially of Onslaught, you'll know that he is just a straight repaint, remold of Hotspot. The reason being, interesting. Let's take a look at that. Yeah. So basically they just cut off the front end of the fire truck, slapped a couple pieces on the back end, flipped it around, remolded this entire section from Hotspot and to make it more like Onslaught, which is cool. I'm down with that. And you know what? I actually kind of like both of them, even though they bear, many similarities. Now, first off, let's go with Hotspot. One of the things that I do find cool is his ladder. It is sometimes hard to do a fire truck transformer just right. So, with that in mind, you know what? They actually pull off Hotspot really well. I have never really been a big fan of the Protectobots until after I got Hotspot. But I just love all the little details that they have for Hotspot. His fire truck mode, I haven't really compared it to G1 Hotspot, which this is based off of, but you know what? For a fire truck in general, it's really cool. But the one thing that they show in the instructions is his cannons for robot mode. They show them flipped upside down and pegged in right here. Well, they sit at a funky angle, and to me it looks better to have it back here. So not only is he going to shoot you down with high power water pressure, but he's also going to blast you with lasers. So, now the one thing that some people might complain about is later on, the head for Defensor is right here. I mean, it's hiding in plain sight. So, anyway, but this part of being a robot in disguise, right? Onslaught. Now see, as much as I love Hotspot, Onslaught, I feel like I'm rhyming here. Onslaught is really cool. Because when I look at him, I actually don't see a remolded Hotspot, because what they've done is, and this is part of transformation, they've come in and put these pieces on top that give this that front sort of SWAT vehicle look, which, apart from the G1 Onslaught, he didn't look like that, but that's okay because overall the general aesthetic nails it. Now, honestly, I do believe this bit right here is a little bit too bulky. I'm glad they remolded it from Hotspot's ladder system. But I like a more streamlined look. But overall, if you're just going off a generalized shape, you've got Onslaught here. Same thing with him. He rolls really well. I just love the look. The color selection is so apt. Now, one thing that I've always wondered about is you look on Hotspot. For a fire truck, he's got the sirens here. That works fine. Well, when you look at it, here it is on Onslaught too. The alarms are still there. Now, they've colored them purple, and I was like, well, why would he have fire lights? I was like, couldn't they have just taken that off and they were remolding it? I mean, they remolded the feet and a lot of other stuff. Why not just leave them off? And the reason being is it works better in robot mode, as you'll see. In vehicle mode, this does kind of disguise it to where you don't notice it as much, but I mean, you can still tell they're there, obviously. Now, part of his transformation gimmick, this is the way they show him being done in the instructions, which locks this whole cannon mechanism down because it spins, because it was, again, based off of the ladder system. From the previous use of the mold. Now it can spin, but not really well because you've got, again, this section of the leg blocking it and everything. So I like to leave them down like the instructions show because it doesn't hurt it. And so it's okay. And I think this gives it more of, like I said, that G1 look. So anyway, that aside, let's go ahead and take a look at these guys in robot mode. So here we have Onslaught and Hotspot in their robot modes, and you will be able to see a lot of similarities. Now, one thing you'll notice, look at Hotspot, the lights on his knees do well. They break up the colors, add a little bit of distinction. You can tell where his knees are at. That is why they left them on for Onslaught, because, again, it just helps break up the black from the dark, kind of teal color that they got going on here. So, one question might be, why are they at the very back of my area where I video? Hotspot doesn't need to be. He doesn't have an issue. He stands perfectly with his big feet and his giant ladder on his back. So he's okay. The issue comes with Onslaught, and PI had the same issue, and I will show you what that is. Look, look, look. I'm not touching him. Hands off. Oh, and of course he does it right whenever I video. You jerk Decepticon. How dare you? Oh, look at that! Yes, Onslaught has weak knees. Why all of a sudden? You know, it's funny because whenever I stop videotaping, he will have an issue again. Generally, he can't do this. He will fall right on over. And I had this whole deal that I was going to tell you guys about the backpack and everything, and how they balanced Hotspot a little bit better because he has stronger knees and he has something bigger on his back, and yet he works. Whereas Onslaught, every other time I've transformed him and had the guns on his back, his knees have been really weak and he's fallen over. Which the way I've gotten around that is I've put the guns in his hands like Hotspot has here. Now true, it doesn't give him that G1-esque look. Treating him like he's glass now. You know what, if he sticks like this afterwards, I may have to rethink my position. No, honestly, like I said, he's had that problem every time. But the thing is overall, let's go with Onslaught first, because we went with Hotspot first last time. Onslaught, I mean, they nailed it. It's awesome. Like I said, you could put the guns in his hands, but then you don't have the G1 aesthetic. I'm afraid to do it. That's why I'm not doing it. I just need to man up here. Like I said, PI also had the same trouble with his Onslaught falling over. So, but it looks like mine is doing fine now for some odd reason. You know, and no, it doesn't look bad. He does remind me a lot of the original figure that had the big orange gun. You know, whether you had the Onslaught or the what was the other one, Mega Octane version. You know, so I mean that's cool. I like that. Do I like it better than the cannons? Honestly, it's about the same for me. I don't have an issue with it. And the thing is speaking of G1 Onslaught, the colors, the way they've done it, you know, this is all molded, raised on some parts, you know, beveled in others, you know. So I mean, I love how they've drawn out the details in Onslaught's chest, and the head. I mean, that's a dead ringer. That's awesome. So I mean, you know, honestly, I do like Onslaught. He is cool. I've always liked the Combaticons, and so anyway, yeah. Now that he's working right, I have zero issues with him. Now, Hotspot. Hotspot comes across as a little bit bulky, but I mean, I don't care. He looks cool. I love the fact he has these big feet as opposed to Onslaught, which, you know, I mean, you're just keeping in line with what they looked like in the 80s. So, but the big feet are kind of cool. You know, I mean, it's really cool. And the ladder on his back doesn't bother me. The fact it doesn't hinder Hotspot in any way, that is awesome. I mean, he still has full range of motion. I mean, he's just, let me raise it up here. These are tall guys. I mean, I love it. It's awesome. So, you know, robot mode for these guys, I definitely, yeah. It doesn't fall short for these dudes. So anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at them in their combiner modes. And my oh my, what big combiners we have. Now you're wondering, how big are these? Now if you have any of the Combaticons, the Combiner Wars bots, you know how big they are. But for those of you that don't and are just watching this review, if you have, let's say, Age of Extinction Hound, that's how he stacks up to those guys. He comes up to, it looks like their waist, but actually looking at it straight even, as opposed to where the camera's looking at it, he actually is about half an inch shorter than their waist. So, anyway, now one thing you'll notice on Defensor is he's got like I said, he's very bulky in all of his modes. But look at his waist. That is literally all that connects his legs together to his torso, is just that little itty bitty piece. Now again, it's mostly hidden. The big chest and the big legs, you kind of ignore it because he's very stout. Don't get me wrong. He may look weak there, but he's not. And the rest of the body kind of hides it well, so that's cool. And don't get me wrong, I love I'm so used to all my other combiners having sort of heads that are different. This is what I think of more of a generic head, which I'm okay with. I mean, as far as I know, that's what Defensor looked like. The detailing on it is cool. Having his ladder system splayed open because it wraps down underneath his crotch and back up to his head, so it wraps around his whole body, which is unique to dispose of the ladder. But you know what? He doesn't look bad. And even with the aerial bots, I like the way he looks. Honestly, I do. Now, I left off a lot of the aerial bot weapons, which I didn't do for Bruticus, just because he needs armaments. I mean, the dude is normally made up of, war machines. Now, one thing I love about Bruticus is something I sort of just contradicted myself with Hotspot. This is unique to Bruticus. You look at that, you see him. The Military Titans was the only other thing that probably has a better head than this one. Now, one thing I do want to mention is you notice his stacks. That's a very G1 Bruticus look, because in robot mode as either Onslaught or Bruticus, he had these giant cannons sticking up behind his head. That's something I've done. This is the first time I've tried it like this, and because this is the first time I've put him together in combiner mode. And all together, you look at him, it doesn't look bad. I kind of like it. Now, the way that the promotional shots for Onslaught are, is if we take Onslaught here, this little piece right here that's behind his head, they made it to where it could fold backwards, kind of like this, and down, and then you plug in the cannons back here. What Bruticus looks like in his promotional imaging is this, which you got to think about how this physically translates. On Onslaught, that's basically almost the same position in robot mode, so his head's not as big, and his shoulders are a lot lower, so you get more of the cannons and more of the accurate G1 look for Onslaught. Well, in this one, what they've done is the Onslaught mold, this is his robot arms, and they are folded 90 degrees down for Defensor, and they're hid by these two giant, chest plates. On him, they rotated him up to give him bigger, meaner-looking shoulders, and plus, it helped these to tab in secure, whereas on Defensor, where his chest pieces tab into on the front part of the arms, or what is his shoulders, the front part of his shoulders in robot mode, on Bruticus, by flipping it up, they peg in different, and they are more secure. Now, that I've just totally rambled on about that, let's go back to the point that I started with these reviews. I showed you what it looks like on Defensor, where his legs connect to his torso. Look at Bruticus. It's the same exact system, but this time they've hidden it because they've given him more of the accurate Bruticus chest plate. On the old figure, it just plugged in and covered up a lot of stuff. Well, in this one, this folds down from here, and then it covers up the little weakness that you have on Defensor's looks aesthetically. Now, like I said, he's just as secure as Defensor is because they're engineered well. And honestly, I don't think he looks bad with the Stunticons, but I'm pretty happy with these two guys, honestly. This has been the review for Combiner Wars Hotspot and Combiner Wars Onslaught. Stay tuned for more reviews, guys.